All right, we are going live. Hold, please. And we are live, and I see Paul Sakamoto, and now I see my name. Okay, so I'm going to provide you all the link. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our new stream. Thanks for bearing with us. Passing over the link and sharing it out with everyone publicly now.
Thank you, Courtney. Welcome back, Taiko fam. Before I forget, I want to remind everyone that our closing session will have ASL interpretation by lovely Inga Park, and we'll also have live captioning available at the THISID link somewhere on your screen. Can you believe it has been 3 days already? I'm simply awestruck and humbled by all the new friends that I've made and all the new things my mind has been open to over this weekend. I didn't want to tell anybody during the opening, but the cat was let loose out of the bag already. Friday was my birthday, and this far and away has been the best present I could have asked for. It never ceases to amaze me just how generous and welcoming the Taiko community is. We rock, y'all. I feel like I have gained so much positivity and energy from hanging out with y'all over the past 3 days. And even when I was lurking behind the scenes in a few sessions, okay, more than a few sessions, I was overwhelmed with the eagerness that you all have to help one another. I feel like I learned as much from our attendees as I did from our amazingly talented facilitators. If that bond, that special connection we share doesn't define what is beyond the drum in Taiko, I don't know what is. Before we open the floor to our closing keynote, we want to remind everyone of a few end of show items for the conference. In addition to your session surveys, you will receive a survey asking about your experiences at the conference itself. This data helps us understand what worked well this weekend, what we can change or improve upon, and how interested folks may be in having this continue as a program for TCA. Please fill those out for us as it deeply informs us to make timely and relevant programming decisions for the Taiko community. I think it is safe to say that we've all shared and grown over the past few days, but the party is just getting started. I'm going to pass the mic to TCA's business manager, Courtney Ozaki, who is going to give us the lowdown or the down low, I still don't know which one it is, on what is happening in our closing session and beyond. Courtney, take it away.
Thanks, Christina. We are so honored that we've been able to share this weekend with you, and it's been so much fun. This closing session will include our closing keynote speaker, who will be introduced very shortly here, a panel discussion, and some fun Opon dancing. So I hope you've all dressed comfy. After the conference, TCA will be working hard to compile the recordings of sessions and correct any of the live captioning or spelling errors and correct usage of Taiko terminology. And once these recordings are completed, attendees will receive notice that these are available for future viewing. Most of the recording sessions are available for at least a month after we give you notice. So please enjoy as much session time as possible. And the other functions of the conference, like the shopping and networking features, are still available as well on SwapCard. So it may be a good time to make longer lasting connections with folks before those features close out too. After the closing tonight, we are going to open the doors at 6 p.m. Pacific time of the Taikoverse. And as many of you may have heard rumors, Taikoverse is an 8-bit concert viewing experience of never before released footage of the Obon Classics crew. So I'd love to extend a special thank you to Lati, where we filmed, and to Isaku, Sumie, and David for performing an incredibly amazing set of music, and to ILYSM for providing these artists with brand new tabi for the show. This concert is meant to be viewed by as many people as possible, so please tell all of your friends, even those who maybe didn't attend Beyond the Drum, to join us in the Taikoverse. The link is going to be here in the chat. And once you make port in the docs of the Taikoverse, which you'll understand once you get there, you will be welcome to a town featuring 4 seasons. Within each season, you can hang out with friends or make new ones in the various spaces that we've created. You can learn more about the internal workings of TCA. You can enjoy being an 8-bit avatar, or you can head to the arena where we will live stream the concert starting at 6:30 or 6:45-ish. Afterward, we'll be hosting a live Q&A session briefly following the performance in the space, so within our avatars, and then we're going to leave the space open afterwards for people to gather and hang out. So this method of Taiko viewing is something that none of us have ever done before. It marries pushing tech beyond the drum beautifully with gathering together, and we really hope that you enjoy the show. Just one more bit of housekeeping. I also wanted to share that our auction is still underway, and we will be closing officially at 11:59 p.m. Pacific tonight, August 1st. So you're gonna have to get your bid on. And once we're closed, TCA will reach out to the top bidders to coordinate payment and shipping of items starting next week. I already know that I got outbid on a couple of things, so I might have to hop in there before the end of the night. Anyway, thank you all once again for being part of our first ever virtual conference. And I just want to check really quickly, does anybody have Kay's slides ready to share? Nope. Ah, perfect. Thank you so much. I had a little snafu and my computer had to restart, so I really appreciate that. Okay, so it has been such a great weekend, and this is going to be a wonderful way for us to wrap up our conference. I'm extremely honored to be able to introduce our Beyond the Drum closing keynote speaker, Kei Fukumoto. Kei Fukumoto continues a multi-generational family tradition of playing Fukushima Ondo at local annual Obon festivals. 50 years ago, at the age of 10, Kei was the first girl to be allowed to play the taiko at an Obon festival on the island of Maui. The centuries-old tradition began with her great-grandfather and passed down through her grandfather, father, sister, and now includes her husband and son. Over the last 15 years, her passion was to bring live Obon music to communities, and she has traveled to 7 states and assisted 11 communities in sharing Fukushima Ondo. Kei founded Maui Taiko over 25 years ago to continue the tradition, and they currently perform Fukushima Ondo annually at over 20 Obon dances on almost every weekend during the 3-month-long summer season. They've also shared their Kumidaiko performances at over 20 additional events throughout the year. Kei is also passionate about perpetuating the Japanese culture and traditions and is a founder and co-chair of the 20-year-old Maui Matsuri Festival. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kei.
Thank you, Courtney, for that introduction. And I wanted to acknowledge the native lands that I am broadcasting from. Known as Hawaii, I stand on Ko, Hawaii Pa'e Aina, the Hawaiian Kingdom. I want to send a special thanks to the Taiko Community Alliance and the Beyond the Drum Committee for this time to reflect. You know, as the theme of this conference is Beyond the Drum, there were many facets of Obon that we wanted to share. Many groups in the US began at Buddhist temples, and Obon was a significant influence on the music. And taiko was always available for use from these temples. So for some, they can trace their introduction to taiko from temples and Obon. And just as taiko popularity began with the introduction of kumidaiko in the US, we wanted to bring light to historical context regarding Obon and its significance in history, its evolution, and reflecting on how it can shape communities moving forward are thought-provoking in many ways. We want you all to take away something from this session that helps direct your connection to taiko. So to begin, I recorded a session that shares the history of Obon in Hawaii, and more specifically on Maui, through my half a century of Obon work here. It includes connections with Japan and the US as well. Thank you for joining me as I take you on a 100-year Maui Obon journey. This presentation is a collection of stories passed down through generations, and it takes you through the series of changes that have created our current-day Obon tradition. Obon varies in different communities, but you may find similarities in what happened on Maui with Obon in your areas. So let's start from the beginning. In 1868, the first Japanese contract laborers were recruited to the Hawaiian Islands, and as a group, they were called the Gannen Mono. The Gannen Mono paved the way for a future wave of 180,000 Japanese immigrants in 1885. On Maui, they came to work on the sugar plantations and brought with them traditions that connected them to their mother country. They left Japan because poverty was extremely bad enough that you would leave your family. They came to Maui from various areas in Japan, but primarily from Fukushima, Hiroshima, Yamaguchi, and Kumamoto. After their multi-year work contracts expired, many chose to stay on the island and brought over picture brides and other family from Japan, thus establishing roots in Maui. Keauhua Camp was centrally located on the island. Some plantation camps were segregated by ethnicities, like the Spanish camp, which housed Puerto Ricans and Portuguese. Hawaiian camp was home to native Hawaiians, and Nashiwa camp in Paia was for Japanese. Keauhua Camp, however, was a multi-ethnic plantation community that was known for their annual Fukushima Obon dance. My great-grandfather, grandfather, and grandmother and dad all played in that Keauhua plantation Obon. All played in that Keauhua plantation Obon group. This photo from the 1930s shows the all-male group. My grandfather is the one on the ground to the far left. My father had not yet joined the group since he was a toddler. My grandmother joined them years later as a singer.
The men gathered on the Yagura or musician's tower and just played. The Bon dance was rehearsal and performance all rolled up into one. The music and dance would start at sundown and would continue until after midnight, except for two. Thank you for joining me as I take you on a 100-year Maui. And would continue until after midnight, except for two intermissions. 25 years ago, when we founded Maui Taiko, the only two remaining men from the original Keauhua Fukushima group were my dad, Albert Watanabe, and his friend Hideo Saito. Mr. Saito played fue, and my dad could perform all parts of the song. He sang, he played fue and taiko. My mom in the photo was our uniform seamstress, sewing all of the hockey coats. She came to Maui in 1959 as a picture bride from Fukushima. She is the reason why my dad is still alive and doing well at the age of 95. I also wanted to include a photo of my grandparents, Tomio and Chio Watanabe. Grandpa played the shime taiko, and Grandma was the singer later in the Keauhua group. In 2006, before Mr. Saito's passing, I interviewed him and wanted to share excerpts from the interview. Hideo Saito, an energetic 85-year-old at the time of the interview, was a teenager when he lived in Keauhua camp. He recalled, and I quote, "If you played good, you could stay on the Yagura. If you were junk, they kicked you off. End of quote. Even the Molina brothers would play the song. As the night went on, Fukushima Ondo sounded pretty good. As the last drop of the 2 gallons of sake ended, so did the song. Hideo remembers how he looked forward to this yearly event. He saved his money so that he could buy soda and ice cream for 30 cents. And the best part was the hot dog and bun for 10 cents. It was a community obon, and everyone in the plantation gathered for the annual event. People also came from Pulehu, Kailua, Camp 10, and even Wailuku. Model A cars were the mode of transportation back then. Hideo Saito remembers that the 2 large taiko, or Japanese drums, and small shimi taikos were purchased by this informal group of musicians long before he moved into Keohua Camp, before 1930. They pooled their money to buy the taiko from Japan. The Yagura was made by a local Ku'au craftsman for $70 in the mid-1930s. In those days, $70 was a huge investment compared to the $1 a day wage plantation workers got for a 10-hour day. He remembers that the Yagura wasn't used for several years since the war broke out soon after. No one was allowed outdoors after sundown, and the curfew prevented the plantation camp from having their annual obon dance. Many of the plantation workers, who were musicians, quit the plantation due to a labor dispute and started to work in Hali'imaile with a pineapple cannery. With the loss of musicians and no obon dances at the plantation, the remaining Keohua group members decided to donate all the taikos and yagura to Paia Matukuji Soto Mission. Previous to this, the temple would construct a makeshift yagura for their obon, which proved to be unstable at times. It would collapse when the musicians would rock it while they played. This relatively new yagura donated by the Keohua group was a welcome donation. Mr. Saito recalls that the first time it was erected at Paia Matukuji, they didn't consider the sloping ground in the placement of the yagura. It toppled over with all obon taiko players coming down with it. Luckily, no one was seriously injured. He remembers one man, quote, walking crooked for 2 months, but he must have been okay. He walked straight after 3 months, end of quote. That stopped the rocking of the yagura from then on. The yagura is still used today, reinforced by angled wooden stops and recently refurbished. It is not rocked as it used to be in the old days and should hold up for several more years. A new yagura skirt donated by Maui Taiko adorns the bright red yagura that is still in use today. Here is a Maui Taiko photo taken in 2017, showing the same yagura, which continues to be maintained and is used annually, so this yagura is reaching its 100-year useful life. Our family is pictured on the ground to the left of the yagura in a similar location as my grandfather's photo in Keohua Camp. How did I come to be involved in this tradition? Mom had taken me and my sister along many times to the Paia Matukuji temple to watch my family practice. My recollection of those practices, however, were more socializing than practicing. Sake was replaced with primo beer, and at the age of 10, during one of their breaks, I went up to the drum and started to bang out the patterns on the odaiko, and they were stunned. They let me play on top of that yagura that year. I wasn't thrown off, and in fact, my most vivid memory was of the women dancers who greeted me with money after I got off the yagura. Wow, this was becoming a paid gig at every bon dance because I was a cute 10-year-old girl in a man's world. My mother got me to sing the first time by bribing me with a $50 bill. Remember, this was 50 years ago, so she must have really wanted me to sing. I really think things would have been different if I was a grown woman asking to play in that old Keohua group. This was my start into the tradition, into the family band, and 50 years later, it is still fun. Between Mr. Saito and my dad's stories, let's see if you all remember and can guess the answer to the question. What were some of the unique things that happened while performing Fukushima Ondo during the plantation days? Number 1, sake was served to the performers on the yagura. 2, Singers use raw eggs to help them sing longer. 3, you were kicked off the Yagura if you couldn't perform well. And 4, all of the above. The answer, all of the above. Yes, my dad, who was a singer, so he spoke of singers having raw eggs to lubricate their throats. Stories of the sake drinking and the raunchiness of the song as the evening went along were confirmed by an elderly dancer who told me that Maui Taiko's version was, quote, so clean, end of quote. Our current members felt that one of these traditions should come back. Can you guess which one? The sake, of course, or what we call purification. Of course, but we better keep it off the Yagura or we'll kick ourselves off by accident. Between the age of 10 and 18, I had recruited some of my girlfriends to join in and taught them to play. After leaving the island for college, I still returned home for the annual Obon. When I returned home for good after college, I realized that the Obon tradition was on a downward path because the younger generation were not participating in the dance. If I wanted to keep Fukushima Ondo tradition going, I had to make sure the Obon tradition would continue. There needed to be a shift to bring the younger generation back into the dance ring. Maui Taiko was formed 25 years ago to not only keep Obon music alive, but to also support efforts to attract people to Obon, and we made an effort to get the younger generation back. We went into schools and preschools to teach the dance and get the kids to bring their families. We helped to establish the annual Maui Matsuri 25 years ago and had each festival end with an Obon. It was the first time that Obon was held outside of a sanctioned Buddhist religious event. We focused on the meaning behind the tradition, which was to honor ancestors. Obon in Hawaii is a truly community event with participants from all religious denominations, varying ethnic backgrounds, men and women dancing from all age groups, from a 3-year-old to the seniors. It's truly one of the only events that allows an entire family to do something together. Obon in Japan is normally celebrated over one weekend. Obon on Maui spans a period of 3 months from June through September. Obon over the years has changed with Minyo dancers helping to facilitate the dancing. They are the ones in the middle of the ring of dancers and are the ones you follow if you're unfamiliar with the dance. Because Maui immigrants came from different prefectures, songs from their hometowns are part of the 30 songs that a temple chooses for the Obon selections. Some may switch up songs between their Friday night and Saturday lineup. Ultimately, if a new song is introduced, you are potentially kicking out an older song. As a traditionalist, I've had to give up some forms of holding tight to old ways. An example is the pace of the music. Back in the day, the song was painfully slow, and it definitely did not attract the younger generation to dance. If we played it too fast, the older generation would leave the ring. If we played too slow, the youngsters would leave the ring. We had to find a happy medium so that all would stay in the ring. Over the years, the crowd participated in the call and answer as the singer would kakegoi, yell shouts of encouragement, and the crowd would answer back. There are several Obon songs on Maui that became popular because of this. Tsugaru Jinku, where half the crowd yells, "Ha!" and the others answer. Shiawase Samba is an upbeat song, and dancers would add turns into their version of the song. When I introduced Asianica to Maui, I wanted it to become part of the regular lineup of songs. I brought PJ Hirabayashi, creator of the piece, to Maui Matsuri 5 years ago, where she taught participants the song on a Friday night, and it was part of the Saturday night Obon event. I invited all the Minyo dancers to learn it, as they were going to be leading the dance not only at Maui Matsuri, but at the regular Obons. I also had to work with the temples who made song selection decisions to allow us the time to do another live Obon song. The first year, not all the temples included the song, but the popularity grew enough that next year, the second year, we were able to have it performed at every Obon. Another song that has become important to us is a song called Futaba Bonguta. Futaba is a town that is adjacent to the nuclear power plant, and whose residents can no longer go back because of high levels of radiation. When families moved away to various parts of Japan, there was going to be the demise of their community Obon, and we found out about their plight when we got a donation of a taiko drum body. Mr. Hisakatsu Yokoyama had purchased a large keyaki log, had carved out 3 drum bodies, and had dried them out for 10 years. When he had to relocate from Futaba to another town, he was not interested in making drums again, so made the donation to Maui Taiko after finding out that we carried on this Fukushima Ondo tradition and could make taiko. After receiving the drum body, Maui Taiko members prepared the drum to be skinned, and 6 members of the Futaba Obon group and Japan camera crew came to Maui. Mr. Yokoyama helped to place the final skin to the drum, and we worked with the members to learn all the elements of the song: singing, fue, taiko, and dancing. This was the start of the Futaba Bon Uta project, a 3-year film project that led to an NHK documentary on the film, as well as the actual documentary film called Bon Uta, a song from Fukushima that showed in theaters in Japan. We recorded and learned the Obon song to continue the tradition here on Maui at the temple that had the most Fukushima families, the Paia Mantoguchi Soto Mission. The goal is to one day take the drum and the music back to Futaba when the town opens again. In passing the song on to us, it was revealed that the song did not have a name. It was a song they just played for hours in a local field for their community Obon. Reminiscent of the old days when there was only one song that was played for hours, they had to name their song to pass it along, and that is how Futaba Bon Uta was born. This story reminded me of when I organized a trip to Japan for about 30 Maui Taiko members and family. This was our first trip back to mother country, where Fukushima Ondo came from, bringing the song home. We were set to perform at a Fukushima Expo in 2001, and I had taken my mother to meet Expo officials in Fukushima to plan our performance. At the meeting, they informed us that they did not know of any Fukushima Ondo. And lucky for me, I had my mom explain to them how this song had come to Maui and had been continued through all the years. They were shocked. Could it be this song was also a community song without a name, and only when it had to have a name here in Hawaii that the name was chosen? It leaves me wondering. We had come full circle in understanding how Fukushima Ondo came to be on Maui. 2 members of the original Keohua group moved to Oahu and established the song there in different communities. But similar to that telephone game, where you can start playing something with one person, and by the time the 10th person shares what they think the original thing was, it changes. The Oahu versions have varied from the Maui versions, but its essence was still the same. It was a song that honored the ancestors back in the homeland, but continued in the islands to honor those who made Maui home, and the generations to come. Each generation determines their engagement and the perpetuation of cultural and community heritage. As you can see, the Obon tradition has changed tremendously here on Maui, but we can also make sure that elements of it remain, to keep some form of its initial skeleton. I am a traditionalist, so I prefer to have Obon music played during the designated Obon dance times, which to me are songs specifically made for Obon or have elements of Obon music and dance. Although I like Electric Slide, I have requested that temples leave that out of an Obon lineup to reserve the time for Obon songs. Electric Slide can be played after the Obon is closed, as, say, after Obon music, so that it keeps those precious Obon songs intact. Again, going back to the idea that if you add one song, you remove a traditional song. With respect to taiko, there are 2 philosophies on playing taiko with Obon music. You are either accompanying the song when it's pre-recorded, or you can play the taiko like a rock star, where all eyes are on you. One thing is certain in both cases: you have to have good timing, or the dancers could possibly be annoyed with you. As a participant in tradition, how do we hold on to the important aspects of Obon, but still allow it to evolve? We went from one song played all night long by men, to many songs from different areas played by young and old, male and female. We went from yukata to hoppy coats and 10-cent hot dogs to Maui Chow Fun, different foods, games, and a festival atmosphere. We can be participants in this tradition, or we can also help mold its future to keep the essence of Obon intact. Obon is a time for reflection and to pay tribute to those who passed away. It is said that sometimes looking backwards makes you appreciate the road ahead with a deeper understanding. The Toronagashi floating lantern ceremony has participants write names of loved ones that they would like to honor on lanterns that are then sent out to sea. As a reverend once told me, quote, "You stand at the top of a pyramid of many lives. You represent many who came before you," end of quote. During the war, Obon took a pause in many areas because of anti-Japanese sentiment. As historian Arnold Hiura pointed out, quote, "Would it be okay for Obon to continue with the lights and the drumming, a public symbol of being Japanese?" End of quote. We have had 2 years of no Obon because of this pandemic, but it was also a time of much anti-Asian sentiment. At the height of the sensitivity, would we have been comfortable moving forward with Obon? The true essence of Obon is bringing a diverse community to honor loved ones. Isn't that a truly universal message that perhaps elevates a community? There is no age, race, sex, or religious bias at Obon. It is inclusive. And during what feels to be segregated, exclusionary, tumultuous times, it's a tradition that can unite. Let's continue to dance.
Thank you for presenting that presentation. I'm very glad that we have 6 panelists who have joined us today, and they were willing to share their personal reflections on Obon in their respective capacities. So I'd like to introduce each of them and have them share their stories. Win Kiyama is the executive director of Portland Taiko and teaches at Portland State University. His Bomodori research has been shared in articles, a digital photo exhibit, a museum exhibit, and a CD produced with Reverend Mas Kodani and Nobuko Miyamoto. Welcome, Win. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, Kay. That was an amazing video and wonderful stories and messages. Today, I'll just talk a little briefly about the Bonodori tradition on the American mainland, just a broad overview, and talk a little bit about American Obon songs. So as Kay mentioned, Obon is a ritual and observation that deals with death and the remembrance of those who have died. The first generation of Japanese in America observed Obon with or without ministers, with or without temples in some cases, and certainly with or without Bon Odori. But on the mainland, starting in the 1930s, Japanese American communities along the American West Coast incorporated Bon Odori on a consistent basis into their Obon observations. And this is largely due to the activities of Reverend Yoshio Iwanaga, a Japanese Jodo Shinshu minister who moved to California in 1930. Iwanaga had developed a program of teaching folk songs and dances to Japanese school children and factory workers. And in 1930, he shared this program at a conference in Hawaii and was invited by Reverend Tansai Terakawa to teach Bonodori in California. So Reverend Iwanaga traveled first to Stockton and then introduced Bonodori to Japanese American Buddhist communities in Northern California, Central, Southern, and up to the Pacific Northwest. And similar to Hawaii, since each temple had members from different prefectures, Iwanaga included a variety of Japanese dances like Hanagasa Odori, Goshu Ondo, and Kagoshima Ohara Bushi, along with new local dances, Sacramento Ondo, San Francisco Ondo, Stockton Ondo, and America Ondo. Reverend Iwanaga developed a Bon Odori ritual with ministers leading the dance procession into a circle and reciting the Nembutsu. And the song Bon Odori Uta, composed by Seisui Fuji and produced by the Jodo Shinshu Buddhist Music Association, was used as the first and last dance. So creating like a religious framework for all of the Bon Odori. So here's a quick recording of Bon Odori Uta from 1932. Bon Odori became an important part of Obon festivals along the West Coast because of all of Reverend Iwanaga's travels. And this format then, with a minister leading the procession, reciting the Nembutsu, and then the prominent use of Bon Odori Uta was used by many temple communities. So if your temple follows any or part of this kind of tradition, it might be because of Reverend Iwanaga. As mentioned earlier, Reverend Iwanaga either wrote or arranged regional Obon songs for Sacramento, Stockton, and San Francisco. And these could be considered the first examples of American Obon music, but we're really not sure because unfortunately we don't know anything about these songs. No music or lyric sheets have been found. And similarly, Walnut Grove Ondo was performed in the mid-1930s. We know that it was a male song and dance, but again, no music, no lyric sheets. And then a recording may have been made in 1935 for Seattle, for a Seattle Ondo. Again, has not been located. So the first existing Bon Odori song for the continental US is Rafu Ondo, so Los Angeles Ondo, written by the Japanese songwriting team that created Tokyo Ondo. In the 1940s, we have examples from Los Angeles, Nisei Ondo, commissioned by the Nisei Week Festival, and then Fresno Ondo, with words and music by Mary Tyra. And this may be the first Obon song on the continental US that was written completely by a Japanese American. There were a whole slew of local Bon Odori songs in the 1960s from California to New York and Canada, but more recently, the most prolific of American Bon Odori songwriters lives in Los Angeles, and that's Nobuko Miyamoto. She began her career as a dancer, actor, singer, and in the 1970s was a founding member of Grain of Sand, the groundbreaking Asian American folk music trio with Chris Ijima and Charlie Chin. And I'm not doing justice to her biography, which is amazing. And you can pick up her book, which was just released this year, Not Your Butterfly. Beginning in the 1980s, she started working with Reverend Mas Kodani of Senshin Buddhist Temple. And so we have Yuio, which was written in English and Japanese, debuted in 1984, and then songs like Tampopo, Ichigo Ichie, Mottainai, Bambutsu no Tsunagari, and more recently, Sambazuru and 120,000 Stories from her new double CD. And in San Jose, there's a large Japanese American community with numerous performing arts groups. I'm sure we all know PJ's Asian Aika, which commemorates the Issei first generation. There are also Bon Odori songs written by Chirori Band and other members of San Jose Taiko. And in the Pacific Northwest, there are Obon songs and dances from Seattle, Tacoma, and Portland. So beginning with Reverend Iwanaga in the 1930s, the American Obon Festival began to take on its own character, distinct from the Japanese Obon tradition. And with new American Obon songs, the sound of the Obon is changing as well. And so while favorites like Tankobushi and Ichitasuichi Ondo still make up the familiar soundtrack at many Obon festivals, American Obon Odori songs are creating a unique sense of place in our commemorations. So thank you for tuning in. Thanks as well to Kay and all the panelists and the TCA staff.
Win, that was fabulous. I love, hearing historical stories of Obon back in the day. So thank you. Our next panelist is Reiko Iwanaga, and I wanted to introduce her. She is a Obon Odori teacher and choreographer of the San Jose Buddhist Church Betsuing, one of the largest with about 1,400 dancers. She has studied Japanese classical dance since the age of 4 and has attained the professional name of Hanayagi Reimichi. Her activities include being a board member or volunteer with many community organizations, including the BCA Obon Music Committee and Contemporary Asian Theater scene. She is part of the American Bon Consortium with Win Kiyama and Yumi Hata, who presented Obon Odori at San Francisco's Yerba Buena Center during the World Women's Buddhist Conference. As the daughter-in-law of the late Reverend Yoshio Iwanaga, she has appreciated the opportunity to continue his legacy and to move forward with new dances. Thank you, Reiko, for joining us today.
Okay, well, thank you, May. First of all, she knows that I hesitated to be on this panel because I have very little to contribute. So here goes. I just have a few comments. Wynn explained how the Obon Odori came to the mainland US. And there were 2 statements made by Reverend Iwanaga that I think most of us follow today. One, Wynn had mentioned already that for Obon Odoris that are held with Buddhist temples, the minister should or is encouraged to lead the procession out. And that was a wonderful way of reminding the dancers, the participants, why we are dancing, that we're dancing with joy and appreciation to those who have passed. The second statement he made was that we should include secular songs with religious songs. And I know definitely that is something all of our Obon Odoris do today. So as we all know, in Japan, everyone dances to just one number all night. And that's one of my favorite memories of dancing beside a barn. And with that, you don't need any practice. Well, of course, in the US now, we have a series of dances, and we formalized it a bit by having practices. But at the core of it, I will say that we all still follow the Minyo tradition of simple steps that are repeated that symbolize either lyrics or an occupation or something related to a region. And that's not only the dances from Japan, but those that have been come forward here in the United States. Now, I can only speak about San Jose, but here we have about 400 who come to practice. So of course, that also means that we have a large number of people who jump in that day to dance. And so I have to keep that principle in mind of keeping things simple so that everyone can participate. And, as with any situation, in our case, or in other cases, you may see dances that go counterclockwise, and then after a while, they switch to another dance and go in the opposite direction. But in our case, we have to make sure that we are always going in one direction. I try to keep the movements always going forward because my goal is to make sure that the grandparents see their grandchildren at least once around the circle. So let me talk a little bit about San Jose in that we've always had live music thanks to having the Chidori Band. One year, I asked permission from the Chidori Band if we could bring in San Jose Taiko for a few numbers. And it might seem very Japanese to say that I asked for permission, but then it seemed to be the proper thing to do after having had Chidori Band with us for so many years. Well, they did say yes. And now we always dance a couple of numbers to San Jose Taiko songs. And along with that, there's been a wonderful collaboration because now a lot of their members will accompany other songs like Shiawase Samba, and they will work with Chidori Band on those numbers. And so because of the fact that we were able to bring San Jose Taiko in, I'm happy to say that we were the first to introduce Eija Naika as an Obon Odori dance. And I know PJ will talk later, but she originally choreographed it as a performance piece. And thanks to PJ and San Jose Taiko, we were first to do the dance. And of course, now we all know it's an international phenomenon. And I'm glad that we had a small part in that. And along with Ejo Naika and many other dances, we've also seen a change in the participants. Before it was a lot of temple members and friends. And of course, now it's the larger community. Everyone feels the impulse to jump in. And that's exciting to see. And so with all the taiko ensembles and all of you at the convention, I can see that you are spreading the Obon Odori tradition and changing it in many ways. And it's always exciting to see the new dances from teachers like Nobuko Miyamoto and others, some in Seattle, I know some out east. And it's always going to see this nice evolution of dances. And for me, up to now, I've always created dances based on the Japanese songs of Chidori Band's repertoire. But this last year, I did move forward a little bit. Reverend Jerry Hirano suggested that Remember Me from Coco would be a great dance. And with that suggestion, I realized that it was such a good relationship of Dia de los Muertos being so similar to Obon. So I created a dance, and moving that progression further, Franco Imperial from Sanzei Taiko and Duane Takahashi from Chidori Band collaborated with Mexican musicians. And they even brought in a Japanese singer who sings with the mariachi band, Junko Seki. So we ended up with a song that had Japanese, English, and Spanish lyrics. And so to me, that is, I think that epitomizes what is Obon. It's a continuation of a tradition, but it meets the needs of today's world. And so looking back, when Reverend Iwanaga was teaching many decades ago, there were new dances even evolving then from those in Japan. As he mentioned, Wynn mentioned Fresno Ondo. I know they had Walnut Grove Ondo, Sacramento Ondo. And so I can see that this is a tradition that's going to continue. And thanks to the taiko community, I see you as preserving the tradition as well as adding to the changes. And so thank you very much.
Thank you, Reiko. That's so amazing. You know, really, as I was looking through the history, you know, Obon dancing cannot be done without the dancers, right? So, and you guys are the ones that set the tone for the night. So thank you so much, Reiko, for sharing.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
So next up, we have Reverend Ronald Miyamura. He is the resident minister of the Midwest Buddhist Temple in Chicago. He was born and raised in Northern California and graduated from the University of California at Berkeley, and then went to Japan and graduated from Ryokoku University with an MA in Shin Buddhist Studies. With the help of the Kinara Taiko Group, the Midwest Buddhist Temple Taiko Group started in 1977. He is a former member of the old NATC, North American Taiko Advisory Board, and is currently serving on the Taiko Community Advisory Council. So welcome, Reverend Miyamura.
Thank you, Kay. It's such a privilege to be part of the closing event, and thank you for your friendship and sharing Fukushima Ondo in Chicago. Obon in the east, eastern part of the, North America, is centered around Buddhist temples, the Buddhist Churches of America, and the Jodo Shinshu Buddhist Churches of Canada, and started in the U.S. and Canada by Japanese immigrants that continued, this important Buddhist holiday, and has also now sort of become like a festival too. Obon is the Buddhist holiday that is observed to remember our ancestors and to appreciate the benefits we have already received from our ancestors. It may seem like ancestor worship, but it is not. Rather, it is a reminder for us, the living, to express our gratitude for everything and everyone that brings us to this moment, and to dance and to have a festival, Obon. Obon is a festival that has its roots in the Urumba Sutra that tells the story of one of the disciples of the Buddha who accomplishes an impossible task by jumping with great joy. In other words, to dance. And this is where the dancing part comes into the teachings. Obon in Japan has been a regional and local folk tradition, with each town or village having their own song and dance, and it is used to be observed during the Obon season, usually somewhere between July 15th and August 15th. So each village could have their own Obon Odori festival on one weekend, and then to visit a neighboring village on a different weekend. But more recently, Bon Odori in North America has become a community event, often with food, games, other activities, as well as the Obon dancing. So Obon is a way of building community, building a community beyond just a Buddhist community, and more than just, and to be beyond a Japanese community. And this is why it ties in with Beyond the Drum, because we want to go beyond, those boundaries. But what is important to remember is that Obon is a folk tradition. It has both a preservation aspect and a changing aspect. Obon is organic and dynamic. That is, Obon is constantly staying the same and yet changing and evolving. So it's very much like North American Taiko, which is also organic, dynamic, changing, and preserving, all at the same time. So there is definitely a tie that we can all appreciate with Obon and Taiko. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Ron. Appreciate your friendship as well, and thank you for supporting us today. Next up is Isaku Kageyama. Isaku was born in San Francisco and moved to Tokyo at age 4. He began learning Taiko under a family friend, Mr. Kenny Endo. After Kenny moved to Hawaii, Isaku continued learning Taiko with Mr. Yoichi Watanabe of Amano-jaku. He has played at local Obon festivals in Tokyo and Los Angeles from childhood to now, and is honored to be here and share in the musical and social tradition of Bon Odori. Thank you, Isaku, for joining us today.
Thank you, Kay. How's it going? Isaku here. I'm at my studio in North Hollywood, which is on the land of the Chumash, Tongva, Fernandinho, Tataviam, and Kiz people. Very honored to be here. As Kay mentioned, I was born in San Francisco, and I grew up in Japan. And my first Taiko teacher was Mr. Kenny Endo. When Kenny and Chizuko moved to Hawaii, they introduced me to Yoichi Watanabe, or Watanabe Sensei of Amano-jaku, where I spent the next 20 plus years studying Taiko. One of the things I remember about my time growing up in Japan is playing at the local Obons, and it's been kind of the thing that signals the end of summer all throughout my life. Last year, during the pandemic, I spoke with Paul about music that can be played at his and other virtual Obons that were going on. And I decided to record 4 songs to share with the Taiko community with Sumie Kaneko, who's an amazing singer-songwriter, shamisen and koto player, and David Wells, who is a fellow Taiko player, colleague at Los Angeles Taiko Institute. David played the fue parts. And during this whole process of kind of researching what music is out there, I learned that there were several great recordings out there, including recordings by Nobuko, whom Win mentioned earlier, as well as great recordings by PJ and Win themselves, who are on the panel here with us today. And you can actually access all this great music from the TCA website. It's taikocommunityalliance.org/Obon Music Project, and Obon-music-project. I'm also involved in the Taikoverse concert, which is going on a little later today. I hope you're able to join. I do have a few photos which I'd like to share with you. This first photo is, as you can see in the bottom right corner, this is 1990. This is Kenny's farewell concert that a few of the students put on. I'm playing what appears to be Nidan, and that's a very young Kenny Endo in the background. These are photos from like the family album. My mom always posting photos without my permission on social media, and when I asked for Obon photos as a child, then suddenly it's really hard to find the photos. Until then, she's been like posting them left and right on social media. But anyway, these are some photos from I would say 1990, 1991. And this is a photo with Watanabe Sensei's younger son, who's the same age as me. We're eating squid legs, which is I don't see them as much in the U.S., but it's a pretty at one point it was a very common thing to see, common food that you would see at Obon festivals. And for a while it went away, and I don't know, these days I start to see them a little bit more. But this is kind of my Obon story through the years. Anyway, thanks once again for having me. It's truly an honor to be a part of this history and this lineage of culture that so many people have built and maintained. Happy to be a part of it, and thanks for having me.
Thank you, Isaku. I just love the family photos. I'm sure you love your mom for posting them on social media. Thanks again. So next up, we have Paul Sakamoto. Paul is the director of Puna Taiko, who started his Taiko studies under Reverend Earl Ikeda at Puna Honganji Buddhist Temple, where the annual Obon festivals were an annual highlight. Currently, Paul and Puna Taiko are slowly revitalizing the Bon Taiko scene in East Hawaii. Hawaii meaning Big Island. We have to kind of explain to the mainland people, right, Paul? So mahalo, Paul, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Kay, for asking me to be here. I just had actually two short points. The first one dovetailing off of Isaku, and how am I supposed to follow up on those family photo slides? So I'm gonna try my best and rip through it. But the first thing I did want to mention was the Obon Music Project, which props to TCA for letting us host it on their website. The Obon Music Project, that whole thing started, as everybody knows, last year was crazy, just so unpredictable. And so yeah, with Obon, it was really tough. We had our minister at our temple had asked us to figure out a virtual Obon, and we were all ready to go. We had the playlist ready to go, and then Sensei Tomioka, our minister, says, "Wait a minute, let's talk about copyright. We don't want to get the church sued." And the rest of us on the committee were like, "Oh, dang, we hadn't even thought about that." So thanks to Isaku for coming in clutch and helping me understand the difference between American licensing and Japanese licensing, how there's a different copyright house to go through, and really trying to wade our way through composition, right? Or composition, who composed the piece, who arranged the piece, who wrote the lyrics, who recorded it, and trying to figure out what was doable. And that just led to the Obon Music Project. So I just wanted to say thank you to the people up on the screen right now who very generously contributed their talent to this project. PJ Hirabayashi, Isaku Kageyama and the Obon Classics crew. Win Kiyama, Happy Fun Smile, Marco Leonhard, of course, Nobuko Miyamoto, and the Reverend Koran Okahashi for sharing your musical pieces for, basically to the world for temples to use during virtual Obon. I think, we, at least at our temple, Reverend Tomioka is very strict, and he wanted to, it was two things. He wanted us to avoid, he told us, don't let the church get sued. And two, we have to honor the artists. And I think really that second one, I didn't want to get sued either, but the second one really resonated with me, as a taiko performer also, and having been taught that, yeah, we need to honor the people who perform and record this stuff. And it's very generous of them. So thank you for that. And then the second point I wanted to make was going back to PJ's keynote about connectiveness. And I think it was funny that I had just recorded a video for the, what is it called now? Hawaii Honganji Betsuin. I always mix that up, but we call it the mothership for some of the Buddhist temples here in Hawaii. And Reverend Hasebe had asked me to talk about the beauty of taiko. So I included the short snippet of that video. Let me see if I can play that now. Let's hope it works.
But when people think taiko, they usually think kumi taiko or ensemble drumming. It's the drums and the drummers on stage and the wow factor, and it's loud and there's all this movement, but the audience is in their seats, and that's what people usually think of. But when it comes to Obon and Bon Taiko, I appreciate how the taiko, comes together not only with the rest of our musicians, but also with the pre-recorded music, and especially with the dancers, to create something that I think is really magical. It's when everything clicks together and you're up in the Yagura, and that feeling of community, of togetherness. It's not only with the people in the here and now, but also with those that may have come before, that have danced in this space or may have drummed in the Yagura before me. And it's also the people who created the music and the rhythms and the movements, and when all of that comes together in that moment, when the music is playing and we're under the lanterns, I think that moment, that feeling, it's very fleeting. It's, I guess.
So I cut it off there because then I get all like sentimental and emotional. But I think, yeah, the connectiveness, when I was recording that video, the thought of being connected, as someone who's not normally on stage, but when you play Bon Taiko, you're connected to your fellow drummers, you're connected to the dancers, and you're connected to the community. We're lucky that here in Hawaii, Obon is a really big thing. So you get to connect with the community that way. It really is something special. So, with that, again, I want to take it back to my first point. Thank you to the people who contributed to the Obon Music Project. We're always looking for more. That is really a fantastic way for us to remain connected. And I know it's kind of cliche, but when you think about it, if I'm playing along to one of Isaku's songs, we're breaking down, we're connecting across the ocean and across borders. And I think that's really something great. And then I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone on the panel, as well as beyond, who have been helping keep Obon alive here in America. For someone like me, in that video, I picked clips of our younger drummers playing, because it just shows that, again, the next generation is coming up, and they're embracing the Obon tradition, and hopefully maybe learning some of the Buddhist values also. So thank you for all of you guys' hard work, and I'll throw it back to Kate.
Thank you, Paul. There's always a light in darkness, right? And so during this pandemic, I think one of the lights that occurred for the Obon community was the fact that, you and Isaku created this project. I think it's great that now, there's an actual place on the website under TCA for the Obon project, and that people can literally, find the copyrighted music so that they can share it. And especially when things are online, very important.
One quick point also, I forgot to add, if anybody else wants to contribute music, we're always adding more music to that library. So thank you.
Yeah, great point. Thanks, Paul. Next up, I'd like to introduce PJ Hirabayashi. I think everyone knows her, but I would like to give her a nice shout out here. She is the founder of Taiko Peace. And Taiko Peace is actually, peace is an acronym for partnerships, empathy, and creative empowerment. She is the artist, director emeritus of San Jose Taiko and the creator of Asia Naika, a song dance taiko piece that she has made for open source to the taiko community. Asia Naika celebrates its 25th anniversary this year, and PJ and her husband Roy make their home in San Jose, Japantown in California. PJ, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, what an honor to be on this panel. Oh my goodness, what can I add except happy anniversary, Asia Naika. Thanks to everybody who's on this panel. Asia Naika is alive and flourishing as being part of many communities and also starting to be a part of the Obon experience. You know, Asia Naika was, like I said, created 25 years ago. Oh, even before I get into the explanation, I do want to acknowledge again that we are here in San Jose, California, in San Jose, Japantown, one of the last 3 remaining Japantowns in the US. And we are on the lands of the Muwekma Ohlone people. And for that, we are able to live our lives. So with that, I'd like to explain now how Asia Naika came to be. Being a part of San Jose Taiko and also the first decades of the Taiko movement in North America, definitely, it was very Taiko-centric. Everything revolved around creating music on the taiko. What I really felt was missing was that new music for the taiko community. I felt there was something missing. Like many indigenous cultures of the world, there is no just playing the drum. It's expressing the culture with dance, song, and drum. And I was thinking, like, what can we create that would reunite all these elements? And this is how Asia Naika came to be. There's so many layers to explain about Asia Naika. Even why did I call it Asia Naika? I consulted with one of the founding members of San Jose Taiko here at the San Jose Betsuane Buddhist Church, Reverend Hiroshi Abiko. And I asked him, I really wanted to use this Asia Naika from Shikoku, the Awa Odori, the Baka Odori, the Fool's Dance. And I wanted to ask him, what does Asia Naika mean to you? And he said, I think there's like 3 layers of Asia Naika. And basically, he was just saying that these layers are about expressing, oh, isn't it good? It's a beautiful weather. Oh, isn't it good that we are together and enjoying this weather together? And another layer would be like, isn't it good? Just tremendous appreciation. I said, that's what this song is all about. It's about, isn't it good? And I wanted to also commemorate the first generation of immigrants from Japan, the Issei. And I always say, just like my grandparents, because I never had the opportunity to really talk to my grandparents to appreciate what they had given me to be able to do what I am doing today. And I also felt inspired by Reverend Kodani and also Nobuko Miyamoto creating new music, new American Obon music. And although I was not creating Asia Naika to be an Obon piece, I was just thinking of creating this piece for a repertoire, to be in San Jose Taiko's repertoire, to show that reunification of dance, song, and drum. So I want to thank Reiko Iwanaga back in 2004. Like she said, it was the San Jose Betsuane, the Buddhist church here, in San Jose, Japantown, that inaugurated Eiji to be danced in the Obon circuit. And then in 2015, I'd like to acknowledge Elaine Fukumoto down in Los Angeles, who is like the Obonodori teacher down there, who coordinates the list of dances that would be danced during each Obon season. And she asked me in 2015 if Eiji could be danced down in Southern District of the Buddhist Churches of America. And that's how it started to really kind of ripple into the Obon circuit. And I really am privileged for that. And then also with Kay, Kay was also saying that in 2016, I can't believe it's that long ago, Kay, that you invited me to bring Eiji to share with the Maui community that eventually has been able to be shared. Eiji is being shared through the Obons on Maui. So it's really interesting to see how this taiko piece became part of Obon. And along with that, all along, even back in 1997, when I actually did Eiji as a workshop for NATC, it was the first number to become an open source piece to the taiko community. So it's really taken this really interesting journey of like how it's really gone into different communities. I like to share that I even have the opportunity and honor to take Eiji to Palestine, to Bethlehem, and work with Palestinian teenagers where they were able to dance and also play drums. And this was 2015. So there's been this organic growth for me to experience Eiji. But perhaps the best way to share with you where it's been, I'd like Paul to help me show this next video. It's called Ripples. And you will just notice like these snippets of where Eiji has been. So thank you so much.
Sola
Thank you so much for enjoying the ripples. I'd like to mention that the person that you heard singing was Yoko Fujimoto, and she is a member of, veteran member of Kodo. And I just want to let you know that, Age Anika was not downloaded with everything all at once. It was first with the drums, and a few years later it came the dance, and a few years later it came the music. And it actually came together, all together, in, I would say, 2000. It actually came all together. But I wanted to acknowledge the fact that it has been a layered experience, and it didn't get downloaded all of a sudden like that. So I'd like to pass this on back to Kay. Thank you.
Thanks so much, PJ. That was a great compilation of Asian Nika throughout the world. I mean, you took us not only, from its creation, but literally all over the world. So thank you so much. And, I want to, at this point, this was the first time that we actually got to hear all of the panelists and all the stories that were shared, about Obon in Hawaii, all the way up through, the nation and how it evolved from the very beginning. So I wanted to ask the panelists one last question as we wind down this Obon segment. And I wanted to ask you, having heard everyone speak today, are there any last comments that you all would like to share? And, maybe let's go chronologically through the panelists that we heard today. So I'd like to throw it first to Win. What are your thoughts?
Well, I hope that PJ and Nobuko keep writing Obon music for us. I hope we hear Bonodori songs from different parts of the country and the world. But seeing all of that Obon footage, I really just hope that we can meet again in person. I hope we can gather next summer.
Thank you. And Reiko?
Yes, well, I think we'll rely on the Taiko community to help us preserve the Obonodori tradition and to add new songs, and we'll continue to add the dances to it too. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And Reverend Ron?
Yes, it's quite a interchange between Obon and Taiko, that we really didn't see, in the early days. So it's nice to see, and yeah, that the staying the same and yet changing, evolving, very much is intertwined with North American Taiko as well as Obon, and that it is a folk art that continues to grow, and I look forward to that. And yeah, creative people like PJ, Nobuko, I mean, keep going. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Ron. Isaku?
Sorry. Sorry, I need to unmute myself. Watching the presentations has really made me realize once again what a rich part of tradition and culture Obon is, and it's truly an honor to be a part of that. And as Win said, I really hope we get to meet in person at an Obon. We get to go back to doing it in person again sometime soon, hopefully.
Thank you. Paul?
Yeah, I think, Kay, what you mentioned at the ending of your video about, the crazy state of the world nowadays. And yeah, I think it's legit how maybe some communities are worried about being loud and Asian. And, it takes me back to, the story of Taiko in America. And, like you said, let's just be loud. Let's be loud and let's continue dancing. And I really hope that's what everybody does. But, stay safe. Stay safe. It's a crazy world. But yeah, let's just keep it going. No shame, as they say here. Yeah, no shame. Go for it.
Right. Thanks, Paul. And PJ.
Well, of course, I really like to inspire all the next generation to kind of pick up and feel the urgency of like how to pass on our traditions, pass on our culture, pass on what this community institution has always been. But we need to revive it and be very consciously propagating it. And we have to enjoy it. And of course, that's what Obon is. It's the dance of joy. And we need that energy in our community now.
Thank you. Yeah, my reflection actually starts from PJ's opening talk for this conference of Beyond the Drum. You know, she spoke about how she got involved because she wanted to be a voice, you know, a voice for the Japanese community, because it was during a very, difficult time, a time of discrimination. And, you know, as I'm hearing all the speakers today, it's, just really become apparent to me that Obon, because it's a community gathering, right, it really allows all ethnicities to be involved. You know, there's no discrimination. It's really a way for us to be part of the community and then be able to bring this community together, and to get past these issues of discrimination. So that was my last thought about everyone and their wonderful comments today. So again, I want to thank the panelists for sharing your perspectives. Really heartwarming that everyone is doing so much behind the scenes as we continue to move our Obon work into the future. And I want to say special thanks to the Beyond the Drum tech crew and committee for helping us to share our stories. And now, the next segment is the fun part, right? Like now here is Paul Sakamoto, who will be sharing the Get Physical part of this closing. So take it away, Paul.
I don't know about the physical part. I'm gimpy on my bad knee here, but yeah, we're gonna end the day with some odori. Sarah is standing by to help me play the videos. The first song to kick it off is our friends from Maui Taiko, led by Kei Fukumoto. They'll be sharing their rendition of Fukushima Ondo. So take it away.
Welcome, and we're going to be sharing Fukushima Ondo with you as our finale to this Taiko conference. We wanted to share a tradition that we hold very dear in Maui County, which is to share Fukushima Ondo every Obon season. We have about 20 evenings of Obon here in Maui, and this is a song that is played for most of every Obon. And it's all about honoring our ancestors. And obviously, with COVID, we've had such challenging times. And even here in Maui County, there was 2 years of Obon that was suspended. And we really wanted to end the conference by, honoring those that have come before us, Taiko greats, your family and friends, perhaps, that we've lost throughout the years. And we really wanted to honor them by doing Obon as a finale. So we'd like to share with you Fukushima Ondo. Ha ha, sorota sorota yo, odoriko ga sorota yo. Ha ha, kino deho yori yare, teresa yo yoku sorota yo.
はどの手であれいらさよさますやらよあよいよいよいつなあどこいどこいどこいなよいしょあいよいよいよいつなあは今年は年だよお日本が咲いてよ道の小草にあれ偉さよ米がなるよあよいよいよいつなあどこいどこいどこいなはっさっさあよいよいよいつな
Awesome. Thank you, Kay and Maui Taiko. You know, as someone who had the fortune to dance along with you guys one time at Maui Matsuri, that brings back great memories. So thank you for sharing that. It's also neat to see how the dance is different. Yeah, even regionally, even here in Hawaii, between our islands, the dance and the music has little differences that make it, characteristic. So truly magical. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you to our panelists for dancing along. It's like chair dancing, chair odori. Yeah. That's the segue into the next song. Some of you have seen the sneak peek for Taiko Voices. This was commissioned like back last year actually, and yeah, I finally got to see a sneak peek of it this past week. I shared it with my Taiko group, and my kids are like, "Oh, it's a dance! Yeah, we'll totally bang it out." And they watched the video and they're like, "Whoa, that's pretty crazy stuff." So. It's a tough one. It's a super tough dance, but it looks like a lot of fun. So I hope you're gonna continue in your chairs trying to dance along. So with that, let's cue up song number 2, Taiko Voices. Thank you to Franco, Ryan, and Kate for all of you guys' hard work on this piece. Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I am like legit sweating in my chair in the air conditioning. So that's thank you to the Taiko Voices crew, Franco, Ryan, Kate, as well as members of San Jose Taiko, San Francisco Taiko Dojo, and Hinata Taiko for helping to produce that video. Um, that's really wonderful. I think that's a fun challenge, and that'll be a lot of fun to add to the Odori repertoire. So moving on, our last song for today. I gotta catch my breath still yet. To close out this segment, of course, it's gonna be Eijanaika. So this is a video that San Jose Taiko taped special, I think, for today, right? In fact, I just wanted to shout out that I bought my Tenugui and it came in last night, so I'm super stoked. With that, let's go ahead and roll our last song for today, Eijanaika. I hope you enjoy. Okay, thank you to again, thank you to PJ and San Jose Taiko for putting together that wonderful video. With that, thank you everybody for dancing. I know I know the panelists were doing their chair odori, and I'm sure there are a bunch of people in the chat who are dancing too. So thank you everybody for participating. With that, I am going to pass this on to someone who's going to do our thank yous. I think we have a video queued up to close out today's conference.
Wow, that was so much fun. I danced. Did you dance, Ben?
I did, but thankfully the experts were the ones spotlighted for these videos. Thank you so much, Kay, for an amazing keynote, and thank you to all the panelists for giving us so many perspectives on Bondaiko.
So my name is Akemi Chan Imai. I use she, her pronouns.
And I'm Ben Pachter. I use he, his pronouns.
And we are here to say our final Beyond the Drum thank yous and goodbyes. I know, right? Where did the time go?
Definitely went too fast, that's for sure. So Akemi and I are TCA board members and this year's current vice chairs. And starting next year, we will be co-leading the board as co-chairs. It is our personal mission to keep TCA running, support our community beyond the drum, see what I did there, and create more opportunities for us to gather digitally and in person.
Nice. That's right, Ben. And next year, you can definitely look forward to the return of TCA grants in the spring. We have some amazing new programming again next summer. And of course, increasing our digital resources for everyone that will be freely available to the community.
While we don't want to spoil any surprises that we're saving for later this year, trust us, it is an amazing time to be part of the TCA family.
And speaking of family, I feel like all of us have grown and shared so much over the past 3 days. I certainly have made a few new friends and have begun to think about all the ways that I can, really go beyond the drum in order to support Taiko.
Yeah, totally. So one last shout out to our sponsors, Karon, Sano Taiko, and ILYSM, not to mention our mentors, our moderators, our facilitators, our auction donors, and of course, our amazing attendees. Thank you all so much for making this project a reality.
And thank you too for supporting the creation of Taikoverse. What an amazing virtual world. I'm gonna go set up my avatar in a bit to watch the show, and I hope to see you all in there. But for now, enjoy the closing credits while staff play us out. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. I'm just going to invite Courtney and Christina on here as well to give final thank yous.
That was such a wonderful panel, Kay. Thank you so much. Oh, hi, Christina.
Well, thank you, everybody. I just want to give a final, as Courtney mentioned, shout out to all of our presenters here, our keynotes, Kay, and of course, PJ for our early keynote session, all of the panelists who shared everything today. This does bring us to the close. Akemi and Ben, thank you also for closing us out officially for Beyond the Drum, our very first virtual conference. We hope everybody had a great time. At the very beginning of this conference, we launched events by folks getting out from behind their computers, ironically, to run a 5K or do something with some kind of 5K effort. And as we have been here excitedly working with you all weekend behind our computers, we decided this was the right time finally to get in our 5K. And thanks to being inspired by all of this drumming and also by Suyun and the Mountain View Buddhist Temple in Jundaiko, who hosted a Okairi Renshu, 45 times playing Renshu Odaiko in a row 5K challenge. We decided to take up that torch as well. So as you enjoy the rolling credits, please enjoy us playing 45 rounds of Renshu. To make it a little bit more fun, we did put some background music so that in the spirit of Obon, you can also dance. Though I will say, admittedly, it's not Obon music. It is whatever we could play Renshu to, an eclectic mix. So we hope that as this runs, you'll join us in thanking everybody in our rolling credits dance party. Have some fun. We appreciate you. Take care, everybody.
We love you all. See you at Taikoverse.